My name is David Hanzel. I'm an intuitive medium. On today's episode, I'll be speaking to a good friend of mine, India Leigh. She's an intuitive reader, and she reads oracle cards and tarot cards. We're going to be discussing divination, what we feel, how we do it, and what happens during the process. So if you're ready to go down the rabbit hole, let's begin. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Mystic Stew. My name is David Hanzel, intuitive medium, and I have a special guest with us today. I'm so excited. It's one of my best friends in the world. Her name is India Leigh. She's an intuitive reader, an oracle and tarot card reader, and today we're going to discuss what we see, how we see it, how we prepare, and how we get validations for the information that we receive. Hi, India. How are you?
Hello. I'm so excited and honored to be here and just beyond excited to be on your podcast with you.
Well, I am extremely honored as well. So let's jump into it, India. I'm going to start off and just ask you a few questions, and then we'll just go back and forth and tell people kind of our thoughts on this. Yeah. So before you do a reading, now India does something it's called divination a lot of times. So besides just using intuitive things and getting the information just kind of put into her head that she repeats it, she also uses cards, or divination is what we call it. How long have you been doing divination?
Oh, about 4 years now, and playing with it for a little bit longer. I've always been fascinated by it, so I can see now where I was being led toward it. I've always loved symbolism and images, and just even back in literature, which I used to study, and never really knew why I was so fascinated by symbols. I used to read about Carl Jung, who writes a lot about symbolism. And then when my guides started having me use tarot cards and use oracle cards, I started putting it together and going, oh, my guides know that symbolism speaks to me. You picture something and I see a picture and a whole story comes to mind. And that story now is the message that Spirit's given me for that person. But I love the way that Spirit speaks through, the guides speak through images.
Now, do you have a favorite, as far, I read cards too, not as well or as much as you do, but there's tarot cards and oracle cards. And do you, if you want to explain the difference between people, do you see a difference between them or have a favorite, or does one give you better information than the other?
Yeah. Well, it depends on what resonates with you. One thing that people do when they're trying to learn tarot, it can be very frustrating because it's a very complex language. It's a mix of traditional teachings and things that flow through directly from your guides. So it can get a little bit, intimidating if you think you're going to learn it from a book, if you think you're going to sort of learn the literal meanings of each card in that way where you could study it like a college course, but also just playing with it intuitively, looking at the pictures. What are you getting from them? Oracle cards are a wonderful way to start, and they're how I started, because each oracle deck is contained in and of itself. You don't need to understand a symbolism language to delve into it. It's got everything you need right there in the box, and anyone can play with those, feel drawn to a card, pull it out and get a complete message right there from the card, from the book, and from what you see in the image. When you dive into tarot, then there's a lot of deep symbolism involved, and there is learning. Okay, you've got swords, which represent thoughts. You've got cups, which represent feelings and the heart. You've got wands that stand for the spirit and the soul and that fiery passion. And then you've got pentacles, which talk about physical things around us and abundance and things like that. And then, you get more complex from there. If you do want to dive into tarot, I believe that the best way to start is with the most traditional tarot, which is called the Rider-Waite. And there are lots of varieties of the Rider-Waite tarot, but if you Google Rider-Waite, you'll start with sort of the basic. fundamental tarot. But when you get into the different interpretations, and there are hundreds and thousands of different types of tarot decks created by different artists. My favorite is by Ciro Marchetti. He's an Italian artist, and he has done the Gilded Tarot, which is a really beautiful, vivid tarot deck. And you can just really get lost in those images, which is what I like to do.
Now, for me, I know intuitive or tarot for me, exactly as you said, it is more intricate. It's a lot more intricate. I know when I do it, I have tried to study everything, because it's okay for me personally, it's okay for someone to study a tarot deck and know the meanings concrete that were written out for the pentacles and the cups and the swords. But I've always had a very hard time with memorization of that. So I read them intuitively, like like the oracle cards. I look at the picture, and right away in my head, a movie plays in my head, and then I just spew out exactly what it's showing me. Do you do something similar, or is it slightly different?
Well, and the tarot in itself is absolutely designed to do that. I mean, you look at one of these images, you know, you've got the magician, that's one of the major arcana, and you can see this man, he's like a wizard, and he's got all of these tools hovering over his fingertips. He's got a pentacle, he's got a cup, he's got a wand, he's got a sword. So you don't have to know anything about anything of the tarot to look at this and go, wow, he's powerful, he's creating, he's, you know, aligning with spirit energy, he's enlightened. You can see all of these things from the actual image. And that's part of what makes a wonderful tarot deck, the different interpretations. You'll see cards where that magician card looks wildly different from deck to deck to deck. So feeling into those intuitively is certainly part of it, and that's definitely part of what I do. I'll be looking at a card I've looked at many times before in many readings, and they'll show me, oh, in this one I can see an owl up in the top of the tree, and that is drawing my attention, and owls represent divine wisdom, and so they'll take you in a million different directions for sure.
Now, I want to tell the audience that India and I do events together in Georgia, and we do something that's not really been done before. Is I do a mediumship event, what we call platform readings or gallery, and we in India have done them together, where India picks out people and use cards, and I do medium. But India recently has been getting a lot of information like a medium would get it, because she's actually done some mediumship readings. Now, everybody who does stuff in the spirit world, you'd be surprised on what they're going to bring you later on. You might think that I'm only going to be a card reader, that's all I can do. But no, lo and behold, if they want you to do something else, they're going to give you the skills and get you to learn how to do it. Now, with that being said, India, when you are doing, let's say, your card readings, and you hear those, besides just the images and the interpretations, I know that you also hear something. You hear those thoughts or see those thoughts. Do you worry that if they come from a specific person, do you try to figure it out? Or are you like me, where it's like, I don't really care who's saying it, I trust who it is, and I'm just going to say it to the person, and they'll validate it for me? Which do you do?
Well, that's such an amazing question. I love it. And what I do first whenever I'm doing any kind of reading is I first set the intention that I'm turning myself over to be used by spirit for the greatest good and highest intention of this person. So I'm handing myself over for the highest possible purpose. And in doing that, I'm sort of clearing India, the human being, out of the way, and allowing the guides, the higher self of the person I'm talking to, my own higher self, any energies that are serving this person's greatest good and highest purpose to come through. And in doing that, I do release, who is this that I'm hearing? But what happens is, I'm giving the reading, it's flowing through, and then spirit will give me, or the guides, however I always just say they, and I know we both say that a lot. Yeah. You just say they, and that just means spirit, the higher selves, the guides, the divine, whoever.
A consciousness of some sort.
Yep, yeah. Consciousness, people on the other side, whoever's coming through, will give me this wonderful, delicious, I love it, electrical feeling in my body. So when I'm hitting on something really important in the messages, in a reading, they'll zing me with this energy. It's like sticking my finger in a light socket, and it's wonderful. And that really lets me know, yes, they're connecting And sometimes they will do that if the person has brought up someone on the other side, or, a particular archangel or guide. They will zing me with that energy, and that will let me know, oh, we're connecting with that person. That message is coming through from that person or regarding that person. And that will let me know, because maybe like a lot of people that in the audience, I don't actually see things. I don't hear things. I don't, it's very much comes through as claircognizance, which is the guidance coming through just like your own thoughts. The difference is that it's not your thought, because you're just literally just hearing it coming out of your mouth. You're not thinking it. And that's the difference. I will listen to something in a reading and be like, oh, wow, I got to go back and listen to that later on the recording, because I don't know what that is, and sometimes you won't remember a reading just because you've moved yourself out of the way. So claircognizance plus clairsentience, which is what I described feeling in my body, sort of work together to weave, what comes through. And really, because I've set the intention to turn myself over, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about who is this, is it, this or that. But what I do love, and what we can talk about, is feeling into what all's being picked up on when we have a reading. Because like you said, when we get to experience it together, we have a whole crew of people coming through from the other side, and spirit guides and higher selves, and just, it's a party.
Exactly. Well, for people who don't know, me and India, a lot of times, even though she puts herself out there more of an intuitive reader and all that, she still does a type of mediumship. Everybody does a type of mediumship, especially if you're really putting yourself aside. You are doing some sort of mediumship. Mediumship isn't always talking to loved ones or dead people. It's also talking to angels, fairies, animals, anything that's over there that wants to offer their wisdom, which actually, before I go on, I wanted to say, I was going to ask you how you prepare. And you told us how you prepare for reading. I'm about the same way. Basically, for the highest of love, light, and consciousness. And that's pretty much all I have to put out there at this point. I'm really not worried about who comes in. And I've been doing it for so long that it's just implied. But I do know, and you tell me if you do it, when I speak on the other side and it's not a loved one, I feel like, for me, they use every one of my clairs. There's, the clairaudience, clairempathy, clairvoyance, and I'm very
smell things. I know you smell things.
I smell things sometimes, or but the smelling that they give me a lot of times, it's called subjective smelling, which means it's almost, if I'm smelling flowers, they don't actually have a bouquet of flowers stuck in my nose and I'm smelling these flowers. My memory will bring up a smell of flowers. So it's subjective. Now, my clairaudience that I use is objective and subjective. Objective means that it's a literal whisper in my ear, and I can actually feel my ear tingle. But most of it is subjective, and like you get, whereas it's almost like they take thoughts and they cover your thoughts with their thoughts, and the only thing you can produce is their thoughts. You put yourself totally to the side, which anybody who's learning how to do this, that is a major, major thing that you need to learn how to do, is put you to the side. You're only there to interpret the thought, nothing more. You can't add your own to it. Otherwise, you'll get your ego involved.
I love how you just said that. They cover your thoughts with their messages. That is so perfect.
Yeah, that's about the only way I can explain it.
Well, and I know you, and you probably you'll talk a lot about this on the podcast in general, your story being so fascinating about the way your gifts came through, the way you've always accessed them, but then, your NDE had sent you into full expression of them.
Yeah.
I came into mine later in life, really just, wasn't aware that I had, like I said, I thought it was just, I love symbolism and I love this and that. I didn't think it was extrasensory, but the moving your mind out of the way is so important. And the way I came to that was actually through self-hypnosis, because I was having a lot of anxiety and my mind was really kind of just plaguing me, and had done that always.
That brings me to a point. Yeah. Real quick, I just want to interrupt you. That brings me to a point for a lot of people who are doing this. you know, a lot of us who do this is to the extent that we do it, it's usually a lot of trauma that we've had. And I'm sure India has had tons of trauma, and she'll probably share that with you at one point when it's necessary. And I've been through a lot of trauma, and we just been through a crap load of stuff in our lives. Now, everybody has, but we've learned to use that as an experience. And we let spirit like kind of pretty much takes that crap away from you
Yeah.
in exchange for you working for them. Does that make sense?
That's absolutely the same thing I was saying. Yes, that what happened was I was having panic attacks and was really just saying to God, without even the grasping then of what was happening. I was saying, you know, please just help me out of here. And the hypnosis, and which also is a lot like guided meditations, just really repeated messages of positive things that get you out of your head, got me into a state where my mind could actually open to receive. And it was a combination of, you know, extreme um, difficulty, like Dave's talking about, and getting out of my mind, because I was recognizing like this place up in my head is not helping me. Getting out of that through self-hypnosis, then I started feeling the electricity. I started hearing the messages even before, you know, even without the cards. And, you know, started going, what is happening? What is this? And when I say hearing, I just mean, like Dave said, it coming through. And then, you know, you just start playing. Also, I will say, key in my journey was actually receiving readings, because when you receive a reading, you connect with the other side in a way that's just undeniable. And there's no way for your brain to rationalize and sort of, you know, trick you out of this communication that's happening. And, you know, Dave was so huge in that, because I could receive messages through the cards and receive what I was getting for myself. But hearing through Dave, this person on the other side is talking to you. This is Spirit's message, him knowing things that he had no way of knowing. You know, that connected me with my guides, even though I was receiving other types of guidance. Putting all those puzzle pieces together is what did it.
Yeah, once they start giving you the validations and let you feel them. And I know you're big on this too. And a lot of people, you know, they might kick us down a little bit, but we're very conscious of validations. We don't just willy-nilly spew something out to you and say, this is what they said to do, this is what you do, and this is it. I know when I do a reading for like even loved ones or angels, usually they know automatically that I need a validation. So they will bring something up that that person has just recently done that I wouldn't know about, or did something just to let them know, hey, we're here. And once that person acknowledges it, the sitter will call them. Once that sitter acknowledges that you're correct, it's like, it's on. It's
Yeah.
on big time. They will just start going. Does that work like that with you a lot of times?
Yes. Yes. And something that happens that I just absolutely love, I just finished a reading where this happens so strong, is the reading, the way things come through has nothing to do with my personality. It has everything to do with how the person receiving it needs to hear it. So like just now, I was giving a reading to a woman who is very no nonsense and, you know, matter of fact and very strong. And, you know, and I'm pretty squishy, like on my own. I like to like cover things in fluff and make things nice. And I'm a Libra. And so, but the guides were coming through, and in this reading, it was like, hey, this is what you need to do. And very matter of fact, very just like no nonsense, no padding. And she, you know, confirmed, like you said, that is how she needs to hear things. That is how she needs to receive it. And her guides know that. And it's being willing for me to like put aside what I like things to be like and go, the guides are coming through. If I have to be like even kind of harsh, maybe a little
I
bit.
know. I know. We've both been into gone into reading thinking I'm going to be all love and light and just try to make them feel good, and then all of a sudden the other side says, "Nope, that's not the way it's going to happen. You're just going to tell them, and this is how it's got to go."
Yeah, those guys have been waiting for a long time for this person to listen to them. They're not going to wait their chance.
Now, I do use a level of discernment. Do you? I mean, they do. I've people ask me, do I know everything? Well, I probably know a lot more than I let on to people sometimes, but it's not for my benefit. It's just they let me know, and then they let me discern whether it needs to be said. They kind of work in partnership with you, saying, okay, this happened to this person, and if you feel you need to bring it up, we're giving it to you. But if you think that it's not a good time, then don't do it. but they always gave me the option of saying things, but they've also held back things from me too.
Yes.
They've held back. I know that you and I did a reading for somebody, and we had said that person, and I remember this, and I don't remember many readings, but I remember us doing this. Of course, we won't say their names, but we were talking to somebody, and they were talking about them. They were a male that I was talking to, but there was so much feminine energy around it.
Mm-hmm.
Going so forth, and they ended up telling us that they were a transition. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was odd. That now, see, Spirit didn't go ahead and tell us,
Yeah.
hey, that person's this and that, but we're going to tell you why that person's like this, and then that person validated us for it. That's about as close as a lot of times the other side will give us, because it's none of our business. It's not my business. It's not India's business. But what happened was it was something that would help in the reading, and that's
Yeah.
the only reason we received that information.
And it's important too, when receiving messages and readings, that we acknowledge that we're working on spirit's terms here. We're speaking spirit's language, not the other way around. Sometimes people will come into a reading with kind of it's like a demanding attitude, like, all right, I've paid my money and give me my messages that I need. I need to know this. And sometimes spirit will send through things because we've set the intention. These are messages for this person's greatest good and highest purpose. Person might come in and be like, I just want to know if this is the guy or not. And spirit, the guides are like, she needs to focus on this other aspect of life, and that is what we're going to talk about. And I do not argue with that, and I'm sorry if the client is not pleased, but this is what you need. Message, spirit.
Well, don't you find that most of the time, once they start listening, they go, you know what, I really did need to hear that.
Yes, and that's part of the confirmation, because then they can't deny, oh, that's my guides, because they actually know what I need.
Yeah.
But because if it wasn't your guides, how would they know? But it is such a fascinating. Another fascinating thing to me, besides what the guides want you to know, is what you can bring to a reading with your own energy. Because when you're coming into a reading, you are coming with the degree of openness that you bring in, and the degree of receptivity that you bring in. So some people can come into a reading and it's like they're wearing a lead apron. Now I want to speak about that too, because it's like I'm so trained in readings to stop, and if something else comes out of my mouth, to listen to it, because spirit might be saying something different than what I'm saying. That even when I'm just talking, I'm like, wait, what? And then I have to remember, oh, we're not doing a reading right now.
Exactly. I know.
Lead apron. So it's like you come into a reading wearing a lead apron of like, no, I'm not going to receive certain things. And that can kind of block the reading in a way. You can block a reading. You can come in and there will give me jumbled messages, and it's because you're sitting there sort of in this ego mind energy of, I don't want it. And spirit's like, all right, they don't want it. Just give them a bunch of gobbledygook. And so one thing to remember is when you're coming into any kind of reading, set your own intention, align with your own highest good, ask your guides to come in, whether you know who they are or not, and ask for that reading to be something that you can receive openly and have clarity with. Because otherwise you might just be sort of setting yourself up for confusion if that's where you're on your path.
Now, how odd, because you are psychic. Because of the fact, my next question was going to be, what would you tell people when they come to a reading? How to act? That's basically it. People need to come into a reading very open as much as they can be. The more skeptical
and trusting, because it's like, so a lot of people, especially with tarot, because tarot has such a woo reputation. You picture like a gypsy, and you picture all this kind of voodoo-y scary stuff. And this is this association we've been trained to have with tarot and with mediumship, as a matter of fact. You think of the pictures we see of mediums in movies and whatnot, and people can come in to a reading with distrust. And if you come in with the distrust, a fundamental kind of like, I don't know what this is, and you're actually aligning with energies you don't really want to align with, because you're aligning with the fear, and that brings in different elements. So it's important for you to come into a reading, if you decide to do one, with, guides, I'm trusting that you're going to be speaking to me, if something doesn't resonate, if somehow you end up in a situation where you're receiving a reading and you're like, this just doesn't sound right, that's your guidance too. But having trust. Yeah.
Now, let's do this. Let's keep this really real for the people,
Yeah.
because just so they know that Dave and India, we're real people. We're not just mediums and readers, tarot card. We are real people, but
So real. So real.
so real. It's funny. It's disgusting real. We swear, we tell dirty jokes, that all that. But when, as a service message to people out there who are thinking about getting a reading from somebody, what is for you, because I've had these readings before from people, what is your biggest red flag to come from a reader where you would say, please walk away from that reader and don't ever go back? What is something that somebody would do to make you never want to go back again or say? I mean, I can start you off on my end.
Yes,
I'll let you go. I'm going to give an example. I worked with a woman years ago, and she used to do readings. She was a medium, very general information, and not saying that that's not okay. It happens where we give general information, but it was always so general. And then she would always offer at the end of her readings and tell them that they needed a hypnosis session. And she was a hypnotherapist as well. And I can tell you, not very good. And she would get them to spend $200-300 extra for that. Or I've seen mediums say, oh, I can't get through to them. You're going to have to come back and book another session on this day at this time, and so on and so forth. Or I've been to readers who, my biggest thing, if a spirit tells you what to do, I think that is a absolute no-no, because a spirit will suggest. They suggest things. And just like when me and India, when we see somebody's, we're doing like a psychic reading for you, we don't just see one path, we see several. Okay, this is the path that you're on now. That's what we're seeing. This is a possible direction you could be going, or this might be the direction you're headed for if you don't kind of switch it around. But I've had so many people that I know, and they'll say something bad, or another one is you have a attachment or a demon following you. Right there and then I'm like, I'm shutting them down. Nope, that's not always the reason.
Yeah. Also, I would just say if things are pointed out, but then there's no kind of support offered with that, because, if something comes out in a reading and, the spirit's not just going to throw something at you and then run, the spirit's not just going to be like, one of the things that people say a lot when they come in and they've never had or they are having a reading with me for the first time, but they've had stuff in the past, is they'll say, it's been a long time since I've had a reading because my first experience was really scary. And they told me just something really, that really just scared me. Like I'll never get married, or I'll never have kids, or whatever. A true aligned reader of any type is not going to tell you things that sound scary, that use fear, or that are basically sort of making you sound like you're cursed. They're not going to do that. It's going to be because spirit doesn't do that. Spirit doesn't say, oh, you know what, you're never going to have this, and you're up the creek on that one. That just is not how spirit works. Spirit will always show you where to go with something, give you guidance. That's what it's all about. So even if you're in a really hard situation, if it's truly your guidance, it will sound like, here's what will help. Here's something that will help. And it should feel like it's uplifting you. And even if it's hard, that doesn't mean we don't give stuff that's hard. We definitely do give messages that are hard, but they are helpful.
Yep. I always give people permission to tell me to stop if I get too personal. But you know what? In as many years as I've been doing this, I've never had anybody tell me to stop.
Yeah.
But I always put it out there. If they say too much, and they'll always ask me, how did you know that? I'm like, because you came to a psychic. That's how I knew that. But they give us information, and like I said, we if ever you go to a medium or a reader and you just don't want to hear anymore, just politely let us know. Hey, you know what? That's a little personal for me, and it's hard to talk about. Okay, great. Because I can stop it, and so will the spirits. They'll stop it as well if you're not ready to hear it. But they're going to give it to us if you need it.
Yeah, they'll give it to us, but then they're not going to do it for us. That's been a hard lesson for me because I'll have I love to have astrology readings, and I don't know a lot personally about astrology, so I love to have my birth chart read and learn about that. And my spirit guides can come into that reading, and they'll show me the lesson I'm learning at this point in my life, and then they'll kind of give me some guidance around it. But I remember saying to my astrology reader at that time, I was like, can the spirit guides, they're just not going to like give me the answer though, are they? She was like, no, because they don't want to rob you of the lesson that you're learning. They're not going to rob you of your journey and your opportunity. They're not going to just give you the cheat sheet to your life, because they want to help you go through the journey. That's the whole point. And that's something you did.
Exactly.
You're always so beautiful at explaining kind of, what we're here for, that it's supposed to be something where we're learning and exploring and not just sort of figuring it all out and floating on a cloud, because we wouldn't be here otherwise.
Now, last question for you, and then I'm going to wrap it up a little bit. But do you ever get drained? Do you feel drained after readings, or can you just do them over and over until you fall over? Or do you get tired, or do you have any after effects like me when I do mediumship readings? I crave sweets. I don't know
Oh,
why I crave sweets, but I crave sweets.
it's the same to me.
But
I can't sleep.
I don't get tired. But you see me and India have been doing gallery readings together, and I'll be between clients, and I'll like go to use the bathroom, and while I'm in the bathroom, I've got a spirit there in the bathroom with me, and they're already starting the next reading. That always amazes me. That
Yeah.
amazes even me. I sit there and go, really? Are you kidding me? In the bathroom?
This is what's so amazing to me about this work is, and at first in finding balance with the energy and how it works, I would get drained here and there. But now what happens is it's actually medicinal and energizing. And like even just connecting with you for this conversation, it just, so much spirit comes through that it feels so good. It's like you change from a system of operating of, I operate on food and water and air, to I operate on mostly spirit energy, because I can go into I can go into an all day event with a headache, feeling sick or whatever, get in there, start going, and everything just fades away. I feel amazing. I don't need food except the sugar. And
No.
and it's like, it's amazing to me how energizing it is, that it just makes you want to do it all the time. Sometimes when I'm feeling really horrible, I'll go, wait a minute. I haven't done a reading in a few days. I need to to get in there and do it, because it actually nourishes. It's like working anything else out. It just energizes you.
Yeah, I agree. For the people out there who'd like to know this answer, and I'm going to tell you the God's honest truth, when we do readings, trust me, we get medicinal just like we get medicinal medicine. So I've had a really bad headache, and I went to do the reading, and they've taken away that headache during the entire reading. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, at times they've given the headache right back to me. So
Right.
so there must have been a reason why I had the headache. It must be something I needed to look into at the time. But yeah, I always feel absolutely wonderful. I feel, because, for me being a medium, I have to step out and I let that other spirit come in pretty much to my essence. So unless that spirit is portraying like they had a heart attack or had something, I really, and I'll feel those little heart
Yeah.
palpitations or something, but nothing that's going to hurt me. But everything about my body goes away.
Yeah.
Everything does. It's just me just sitting there, and I feel great. So we
Feels
do
so
get
good.
benefits from it. So sometimes we think we should pay you,
Yeah.
for letting us feel
Yeah.
better. But we do appreciate everybody who comes to us.
Yeah.
India, do you have any last words on anything?
Oh, just thank you. And I'm just so grateful to connect with you and everyone. And any other questions anybody has, I know you're going to explore them in future podcasts, but we're always around.
Yeah. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening. In the bottom of this podcast, you should see something that says message. If you have a message for me or for India, please go ahead and leave it there, and I will get it to India. You can reach India at indialeigh.com is her website, and her YouTube channel is India Leigh, and Instagram is at India4777. If you'd like to contact me and have questions, do. A question I get asked a lot is, why are we here?
Hi, I'm David Hanzel, Intuitive Medium, and you're listening to Mystic Stew. A question I get asked a lot is, why are we here? Some say to learn, some say to evolve. Maybe we just need to remember and experience who we are. Are there tools in this lifetime to assist us, and what makes us different? Join me, karmic astrologer Susan Reynolds, and spiritual reader India Leigh as we discuss if Earth is just a school, or is there more, and what makes us who we are. So if you're ready to go down the rabbit hole, let's begin. Hi, and welcome back to Mystic Stew. My name is David Hanzel, Intuitive Medium. I'm here today with two good friends of mine, Susan Reynolds, who is a karmic astrologist. Hi, Susan, how are you?
Hey, David.
And India is back, India Leigh, and she is, of course, a spiritual reader, tarot, oracle, and all that fun stuff, and divination. Hi, India.
Hi.
Hi. Today, us three are going to have a discussion about Earth as a school. A lot of the spiritual people in our circle, we will all tell you that Earth is a lot like a school, and it is in a sense. But there's something else about Earth as a school. Do you guys think that we are here more for the experience of the school, of the situations, or do you believe that we may already know these things and we're just trying to remember? India, what's your take on that?
I feel like it's a blend of both. I feel like we are both student and teacher, and that higher self, physical self combo that we're always working with. And the more we travel this soul path, the more we can hear that teacher that is the higher self, and then be that really good student or apprentice, or however you look at it, on the ground, and embody that energy more. So I think where you are on the school spectrum is all about how connected to and in touch you are with that higher self presence.
Perfect. Now, Susan, I'm going to put this to you. Susan, now they say that we're here to learn on Earth, okay, on these lessons. Now, I've thought about this many times. How can we learn about something if we don't know about it? I mean, it seems like we would have to know something before we had got here in order to learn from it. Do you have a take on that at all?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact, because this is where your chart shows you literally what you came in to learn. It says, here's what you were doing before. This is what you've come in to learn this lifetime, and this is why. And I think that's super important because we need to understand why we experience certain things. It doesn't make that issue go away, but when we have understanding, we're able to not take it as personally. We don't feel like the universe is just randomly beating up on us. Oh, there's purpose behind this. And that makes all the difference because then we can start to learn consciously. But suppose you don't have an astrologer that you can go to point out this is what you're learning or this is what you came in to learn. Even if we don't consciously know that, our soul knows that. We don't come in blank. We come in with some sort of program. We come in with a curriculum that says I'm supposed to learn how to do this. And we start to go out into life and experience situations literally from birth that help us to learn that. I had a client earlier today, and I started to see visions of this woman's past lives. And she was stuck at home, and she gave birth, she had kids, she cooked and cleaned and sewed and died early. And her soul wanted to come into this lifetime to learn the other role, to learn what it's like to be out in the business world, to make decisions, to be a leader, to have authority. And so over and over, she sort of keeps getting pushed into those roles. She may not consciously understand why, but she's still learning what she came in to learn.
Now, you said something really interesting, Susan, earlier, which makes absolute sense. Um, for the people out there, when Susan had mentioned that we don't always know an astrologer or an India or David medium or someone who talks to the other side, your soul really does know exactly what it's doing.
you know exactly what you're doing, and your soul will get you the right information and get you the right people in front of you. So don't worry about it. And if you wonder why it's taking so much time, there is divine timing. I am a strong believer in divine timing. There's absolutely no coincidences on this earth. There is nothing. It is set out for you. So when it is time for you to meet these people or get the information, it will. Now, India, as far as what Susan said, what could you comment on that? The
Well,
astrology and
yes, thank you. While Susan was talking, Spirit showed me this really cool image of a kaleidoscope. And they were showing me how, a kaleidoscope has all these little colored bits of glass in it. And the bits of glass are not changeable. That would be us. We're the bit of glass. And then you put that in the kaleidoscope. And then you turn the kaleidoscope, and all these bits of glass reflect off each other and create these amazing patterns. And Spirit's giving me all these chills right now with this image, which is Spirit going, yeah. It creates this amazing different image that's never been created before. As you turn and these pieces of glass reflect off the little mirrors inside the kaleidoscope and interact with each other and create these patterns that have never been created. And we learn what we're here to learn what that looks like. So as the little pieces of glass, we know who we are, like you said, and we know what we know. And that's not really going to change. I mean, we discover it and rediscover it, but we rediscover it through these amazing reflections and patterns and works of art, masterpieces that are created through our interactions with each other and with the world that are one of a kind, that haven't happened before. And that's the true discovery. That's the going into this world and going, oh, wow, I know all these things on a soul level, but look, now it expresses this way. Now it expresses that way. Now it bounces off of this person and that person. And then I'm just looking up and it's 5:55 and it's just like, that changes everything. That element of change is like you and I, Dave, have been talking about the choose your own adventure element, where it's like, now what, now what, now what? And that's what the God essence and our higher selves and Spirit wants to experience through us. And that's what we want to experience, is that, what does this combo look like? And this interaction and this conversation we're having right now and all of that that's never happened before. And then it all does come back to that core truth.
yeah, people, I wanted to bring this up to you guys too. That's exactly correct, both of you. In my eyes, I agree with you both completely. One of the biggest questions asked to me a lot of times is they ask me about why people would choose to go through horrible events, or why people would choose these things. And they always ask me, is it true that I chose them? And my take on it is, we pick our color palette when we come here. We pick our parents. We pick what we're going to do. We pick everything that we're supposed to do. And Susan, I'm going to ask you more on this too. We pick what sign we're born under. We pick when we come in, what moons are where, because that's going to shape our physical personality. Now, our spiritual personality, obviously, we can be an Aries in one life, a Capricorn in another, and a Scorpio in another. To me, the astrology signs basically give us that. It's like that really wonderful extra pinch of an ingredient in this beautiful, delicious food. That's what, it's that salt that made that food delicious. That's what it is, that to me. The people ask why we choose these experiences. And I don't think that we necessarily choose really terrible stuff to happen to us. But as we come here to Earth, we do say what we'd like to learn. We want to remember what it felt like. So these situations come upon us. And that's how we kind of stumble into them. They come upon us. I don't think anybody comes here saying, I'm going to be, beat up by 20 people and robbed and all this stuff. I don't believe that that's what you asked for. I believe what it is maybe you needed to learn something about that situation, and that situation came along. Your soul goes, this is going to be the best way for you to learn it. So there you are. Trust me, everybody's with you. I always remind people that this life is really very short. This life is such a little minute part of the eternity that your soul is. So like to me, and I guess I can say it, I guess I'm biased because I've been over there and I died before. So it really does, it's such a short thing. It just feels bad while we're here. What is your take on that, Susan?
Well, I agree with you. But what I also see happening um, in lifetimes, when I'm looking at the chart and I see what they're supposed to learn, we have a choice. And sometimes I'll see people stuck in a pattern. They just moving into something new is too frightening to them, or they just are stubborn. They don't want to do it. And as we age, as we mature, we have a whisper. And if we don't pay attention to the whisper, it becomes a loud word. And if we don't pay attention to the language, it becomes a tap on the shoulder. And the tap on the shoulder escalates to a 2x4 in the side of the head. The
Hmm.
soul is always seeking to move you onto that path of what you came in to deal with, to become, to learn, to know. And if we refuse to listen, the heat gets turned up slowly and gradually, more and more, until we can put ourselves into a place of so much pain that we are forced to move into what we decided to learn. But it's not because the universe wants to punish us or because there's no other way. The more that we are listening, the easier our life becomes, because then we have more control over how fast or slow we're going to learn our lessons.
So
And I'm sorry, lesson sounds a little negative, like there's some sort of teacher with a bun and big glasses,
yeah.
beating us with a ruler. I'll say learn what we came in to learn about, our choices we chose to learn about this.
Susan, do you believe within these choices that you are able to make a choice away from the bad situation to take it another way if you actually just listened?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of my prayers when I'm working with my guides and angels, I'm always asking, show me how to deal with this situation in the easiest possible way. Because if there's an easy way, that's the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
I've had enough years of getting hit in the head with a 2x4
I
before
agree
I
with you.
finally said, oh, let's turn the knob, let's open the door.
I agree with you, Susan. I've been through enough terrible things where I watch the patterns, though. I watch my patterns nowadays. And
So
when
many
I
people
see a
don't.
pattern repeat, I say, okay, here's that pattern. Let's break it
Yeah.
right now.
And
India, what about you?
yeah, I actually want to add a question onto that for you, Susan, about those lessons, those patterns, and past lives. I know that personally, you've helped me see so many patterns and things that came in from past lives that in this lifetime I'm learning to release. And coming to a place where you feel like you're releasing those, but then they sort of resurface what's happening there. I know, like right now, a lot of us in these energies that are happening are having crazy dreams, vivid dreams. And I know just last night, like I fully experienced some negative past life stuff and woke up going, that was then, this is now, let's release that. Let's leave that behind. And I would love to learn more about doing that effectively and how to work with those energies.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if Susan will agree with me. She may not, because I don't know much about astrology, which is so funny. You'd think I would know something. I love the stars, the moon, and everything, but there's something, and I connect with every energy in the place. But for some reason, I cannot wrap my head around a lot of stuff, probably because I'm just not good at memorizing anything. But as far as like karma stuff goes, this is one thing I do know personally, through experience and in my heart of hearts. Besides us just being here, we have a soul, of course. But in order for that soul to exist, it needs some sort of form around it. That, and where it comes the human body and that the spirit body, the ethereal body, you need a form around it. The body is made up of 1 trillion billion cells, and each one of those cells in our body is alive. In fact, they're so alive, even when we leave this body, our body is still alive. You still have to shave a body after it's dead. The hair still keeps growing. These molecules are still alive, and they still contain some of the karma that you have retained. Which, this is another thing, why there's ghosts, because if karma was not released, karma is what gives you that form. Karma to me is kind of like a form. It's kind of like the Jello
So,
mold.
So Dave, there's almost like a ghost of my past self in a past life that's still in my body.
Hanging. Yeah, there's still,
Hanging
it could be.
out.
It might not necessarily be a bodily part, but it is a part of you that's
Yeah.
still hanging out with you. And those are those past lives.
Yeah.
And we'll start to forget our past lives more and more as we get rid of that karma. Now, when I speak about karma, audience, I am not talking about these nasty things that is put down on you to make you terrible. We have to have karma. Even when Jesus came here, he accumulated karma. Every spiritual teacher that's ever come on earth has accumulated karma. The karma is needed. Like I said, it's what holds the form of the soul. That day in eternity when every bit of your karma is 100% liberated, free, then and only then will you just become a part of all that there is without any identity whatsoever. But even at that point, you still have an identity, which is odd to say. But I forget where I was getting at now. But Susan, as far as the karma goes and astrology, how are you feeling on that?
And the past life stuff.
Yeah, in the past life.
Yeah.
I love dealing with past life stuff because to me it is one of the quickest and easiest ways to grow. And one thing that I'm always reminding my clients of, and that sometimes we tend to forget, when we hear the word karma, too many times I think we see that or look at that as some kind of punishment. And that's not what karma is at all. It's sort of like just our past, our balance sheet. Oh, you got A's in arithmetic and C's in history. We're just looking at where have we been. If you have a loving spouse, that's positive karma you've earned. If you're a good parent and you have a wonderful relationship with your children, that's karmic. That's you've learned how to do that before. If you're a wonderful artist or musician, we tend to think of karma as negative, and it is not. It is actually an opportunity for us to grow more. When you, David, were talking about the body, I thought of something you can, I don't know how to explain this. Sometimes karma is literal. You were, rich and selfish in another lifetime, and you come in and you're struggling in this lifetime to learn about the value of money. That's pretty literal. But many times, karma is symbolic from our bodies. I remember having an appointment once. I don't know what he was, a lawyer, a doctor, or some professional. And a friend and I walked into the office, and the lawyer happened to be very short. He was like maybe 4'11" or something. And we sat down, very capable, good appointment. We're getting up to leave and we're shaking hands. And a voice says in my ear, he looked down on other people in other lifetimes. Now people will look down on him. And so it's sort of, a metaphor. And so we can look at karma from the top of our head to our feet, and you can see where you've been. What parts of your body do you like? Maybe you have great hair. What parts of your body do you not like? You don't like your hands. You think they're too big or short and stubby fingers. What parts of your body have been taken out? I'm, of the three of us, I'm probably, the most senior citizen, and I'm getting friends with gallbladder operations and knee replacements and hip replacements. And what parts of your body hurt you the most? I suffer from migraines, and I once had a vision of myself as a young boy, and buildings were crumbling around me, and a boulder fell on my head and killed me. And I realized, oh, there are the migraines. So your body is a physical representation of lots of your karmic past, what you have experienced.
I've got to agree with you completely because for an instance, a person in one life could be, let's say he's murdering somebody. And while he's maybe choking them to death, I mean, I hate to be graphic, but I'm just the only way I can explain it. Like you're choking somebody to death and they reach up with a piece of glass and stab you in the side of your head. Now you killed them, but karmically, that scar from your head can go to the next life. And to remind you of what has been done. So in the next life, you might always have some kind of pain where that thing was always hurt. So karma does run deep as far as physical and emotional. Have you ever experienced anything like that, India, or know of anything about that?
Well, as we're talking about that, Spirit's showing me just this image of balance happening. You know, when Susan's talking about one lifetime this happens, the next lifetime this happens, it's all about us being able to have an opportunity, having opportunities to experience balance in all aspects of life. Because as we talked about in the beginning with the kaleidoscope, it's your spirit self wanting to experience all aspects of life. So it is like these scales where it's like pebbles on a scale of, okay, I've experienced this, this, and this. And now in the next lifetime, I need to experience this, this, and this. And then in the next one, I need to, and it's really this offsetting and balancing of all the experiences and types of energies that you want to see as a soul. And it is this release of, you know, we often label as humans karma as good or bad, like you've said, and there is no real good or bad. It's all about, you know, the extremes of, okay, this was on that extreme end of the karmic scale, and this is on the other, and there's a lot of stuff in between. And if we're ready to shift a little, Spirit's wanting me to talk a little bit about the tarot in what our topic in the lessons part, which is, you know, in the tarot we have pentacles, which represent the physical world. We have the wands, which represent the spirit and the passion and the soul drive of things. And then we have water, which represents the feelings, the emotional aspects of things, cups. And then we have the swords. And the swords talk about the thoughts and the mind. And all of this is code in readings. This is the way that Spirit's letting us know what aspects of our experience we are kind of imposing with our mind, and what aspects of our experience are genuine and to be explored and to be sort of believed. Because one gift of tarot particularly is it can really expose, and I just love this about it, how much what we're going through is sort of what we're inventing, making things harder than they have to be, creating our own suffering, and how much is actually a soul lesson or something you need to feel. So if you see a card, for example, that shows like the Four of Pentacles and the Five of Cups, that's saying, hey, you're holding on to sadness. You don't need to hold on to sadness. You can let it go. That's an experience you don't really need. Or if you have the Eight of Swords, that's saying, hey, you're creating a mental prison. You don't have to be in there. So that's Spirit's way of going, that's actually not a karmic lesson. That's not something you have to experience. That's something you're perpetuating, like a hamster wheel. And you're kind of wasting time in your lifetime doing that. However, if you see something in your spread that's like the Six of Wands that talks about, hey, you're on your path, you're doing it, you know, you're exploring what you need to explore, you're successful. If you're seeing something like the Eight of Cups, it's like, yeah, you're moving away from stuff that's no longer right for you, and it's right, you're doing good. And these are ways that Spirit says, you're moving through those lessons that you're supposed to learn, and those things you're supposed to feel, and those ways that you're wanting to expand. I love the tarot as sort of a temperature check. It's like a thermometer that says, am I in my head here, and am I doing stuff I don't need to be doing, or am I just sort of on the right track, and am I moving forward?
That's perfect. And you know what? That's going to lead me into the next thing I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to ask you both the same question. And I want you to answer from yourself. Okay. Now, first I'm going to tell you something, and then I'll ask the question. A lot of people will tell me that this world can be unfair, and they say it's an imperfect world. There's famine, there's bad political stuff, there's COVID going on right now, there's murder, there's rape, there's child abuse, there's people starving, there's animals, all this stuff. And they say it's just a terrible world. They say that it is an imperfect world. Now, I'm reminded of this every day, and this might sound cold to some people, but the world is not imperfect. In fact, the world is absolutely perfect. We need those challenges. If we don't have those challenges, this world is absolutely useless. We're just in heaven. So we come here for those challenges. Now, that's my opinion. Now, knowing that, Susan, is when you come here and you have to face those challenges, is knowing like your background, your astrology, are these things that can really help shape somebody's physical and soul experience? Do you think it's absolutely needed, or do you think it's something that uh, somebody doesn't need? Or if somebody says, hey, maybe some people might want to come here and say, you know what, I don't want to know anything, I want to struggle through this, that's my thing.
You
Which,
can absolutely do that.
yeah, it's terrible. But what do you think is the most helpful thing for somebody if you were to give somebody advice, if you were God, and of course you are a part of God, but if you were God and you were to say to a human being, I'm going to give you a little advice on how you may get through this life and learn and remember exactly what you need to do, what would you tell them?
I would say stop looking at yourself as a victim. Stop looking at your wounds, because this is how we hold on to things. And we start doing this very young. Our mom loved our brother better. Dad left us. Our brother was an alcoholic. Our sister was pregnant. Most of us are not growing up in idyllic childhood circumstances. We face these challenges and we feel wounded. We all have that desire for love. But when we hang on to that, what we are saying is, you owe me something. My mother owes me that love, or my father owes me all the years he wasn't there. I'm owed this. When we do that, that is so destructive to ourselves, because it doesn't hurt the other person at all. And it keeps us from seeing beyond that in any way. It's like a big roadblock right in front of us. It's funny, David, because I agree with you absolutely, but would have put it in totally different language when you were asking about if the world was imperfect. I would have said, yes, the world is imperfect. I would have said exactly the opposite way you said it, but for the same reason. It's imperfect because we need it to be imperfect. If it wasn't imperfect, why come here? We come here for the imperfections.
Yeah.
And I liken it to going to a gym. When you're working out at the gym and you're doing strength training, you put some weight on there. You have something to push against. And pushing against that obstacle, that weight builds the muscle, makes you stronger. And this is what we do. I don't know if I was going to say the trick, but it's not really a trick. The way to move past your karma and not let it own you is to find forgiveness. And this is so, so, so hard, because when we're the victim, when we're wounded, it's like, but they're wrong. They're so wrong. How dare they do that to me? And it's really hard. It's very challenging. And the first time that I heard that my spiritual teacher shared that with me, I thought that sounded like so Pollyanna, and I didn't want to hear anything about that. They were the wrong one. I was right, and I don't see why I have to struggle harder. But when we do that, forgiveness frees us. It frees us from the karma. And this is how we grow. And it is probably one of the most important things that we can do in this lifetime.
Yeah. I I'm kind of the same way. I know somebody had asked me one time when somebody did something bad to me, they're like, David, you should just forgive them because that's the way. And I'm like, well, actually, no, because if I forgive them, all I'm doing, I'm forgiving them. I'm forgiving them for doing something bad. So here's what I decided to do. I started to forgive myself for the reaction that I had that somebody made me have. I said, you know what, David, I am so sorry that you took that so personal when it really didn't even freaking matter. And then I get on with it, and I cut the cord and I'm gone,
Well,
Now, India, if you were God, and of course you are, what's
Yeah.
the advice that you would give to somebody to help them kind of navigate through this imperfect, perfect world?
I would say never forget that the way you're seeing the world is through a very small lens of your unique experience. That, if you were an ant, your vision of the world would be so different than through this human body. If you were, an eagle in the sky, it'd be so different. If you were a different person, if you were a king or If you were in some other, just imagine if you were working in a coal mine somewhere, just your vision of what the world is and who you are would be so different. And that so much of your experience of this life and the way you think and the way you perceive yourself and your experiences in this life is based on your human experience and was formed very early on in that. So it would say, just like you said, I'm so sorry you took that interaction to mean this about you. We start doing that for a very young age, and we start building those patterns of how we do that. Oh, my sibling used to treat me this way, and therefore sort of all people treat me this way, and it always happens to me. The wisdom that I would like to give myself and others would be, that is your perception only, and it doesn't make it truth. And there's a whole other world of truth within that other person or situation that is independent of yours. And if you could sort of jump into that, you'd see a whole different world, and that everything is so much more complex than it seems to our human eyes.
I think that not only knowing that our experience is very individualized, is that we always have to remember that other people's experiences are too. Like if you're going down the road and maybe you see somebody in a wheelchair and maybe they have some kind of disease and they might look funny to you, and you think, oh, I feel really sorry for them. Or, it's like, well, you don't have to feel sorry for them, because we do not know the agenda of that soul. We do not know why that soul chose that. We do not know that. Yes, we should have compassion. I'm here for you. I understand. I'll walk with you if you need me to, and that's it. But I don't think that we should ever really feel sorry, and just remember that they are seeing life through a different set of eyes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So now, Susan, do you have anything you'd like to say to wrap up any of this, or anything you'd like to tell anybody about getting through this life, whether it's a lesson or whether they believe that it's just remembering? What would you tell somebody right now?
That's a good question. First of all, I would say, if you have your chart and have ever looked at it or had a reading, I would go back and look at that and listen to that, because many people tell me, oh, I had a reading 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. We grow, we learn. And even if we go back and listen and we're hearing the same thing, we're hearing it differently because we're different. Oh, that's what they meant. And oh, here's how we can look at that. We are always, always, always being offered the opportunity to grow. We do not stop at a certain age. 65, we're retired, the end, we're not growing anymore. No, until we take our last breath in this lifetime, we have the opportunity to become more than what we were, for our souls to lift up. And that's exciting to me, and that's a blessing to me. And I see so many times, I think people just get tired and they get discouraged. Oh, I'll never deal with this. And I guess that's just the way that I am. And I would tell people to keep looking at your higher self and keep talking and asking, keep that dialogue open. Because when we can have that dialogue, we can start to grow the easy way, through grace and through whispers, and let go of those 2x4s in the head.
Perfect. India, what would your advice be?
Yeah, I would add that in every moment, feel into, what am I being shown right now? Because every moment is an endless well of opportunities to have revealed to you countless things about what you're here to learn, even if you're sitting by yourself in a quiet room. What is my body telling me right now? If I have a little bit of a headache, what is that telling me about what my mind is doing right now? Is it resisting something? If this particular relationship is troubling me, what is that showing me? Am I having conflict in this relationship? What is in conflict within myself? Using every single thing in your present moment as a mirror, like that kaleidoscope, to reflect, what am I being shown? Because you can drill down into every single moment. And I know when I'm feeling frustrated mentally, I now try to stop and either ask the guides to just show me and always ask them to be with me and show me, but to really feel into what is all this actually showing me? Because it's not just happening. It's not just random, and it's not just for no reason. Whatever is around you, it has been brought into you for your greatest good and highest purpose and learning opportunity in that moment. So to kind of blow through things and look past that and ignore that is to miss a lot. And like Susan said, then that can become the need for the 2x4s and the harder lessons. But if we're really paying attention and being connected as much as we can every moment, we're going to receive all that goodness that we're intended to have.
That's perfect advice from the both of you. Now, Susan, if somebody would like to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you, Susan?
Well, the best way would probably be through my website. And my website is exploreastrology.com. And there's contact info on there. And on my website, every month, I put out free predictions for all 12 signs. Like, this is what's going on with Virgo in September. This is what's going on with Leo in October. You can look at your sign, and it's totally free. You don't have to pay anything or join anything. There's a blog on there with different articles. So yeah, I would just check out my website. And if you want to be on my mailing list, I send out a free newsletter every month showing what the new moon and the full moon are going to do that month and how you can work with them and use those energies.
Perfect. And India, how can they get hold of you?
Same. If you go to my website, it's indialeigh.com, and that's India and then leigh.com. And also, I would just point everyone toward my YouTube channel, which there's a link to on my website, because that's just where Spirit flows things through me, primarily in video form, whether it's readings or just a message. And so everything's on there that might be helpful or give you a little something. And if you need readings, then I'm here for that too.
Great. Thank you so much, you two, for being here. And to everybody else, if you are wondering what my advice would have been, the
Yes.
best advice I can possibly give you to figure out what's going on. If you can't get hold of an astrologer or India or me or somebody else, all the answers of the entire universe, all the answers in the world for you are within. The only way you're going to reach those answers is to be still. And that's something that we forget to do on this earth a lot. We look outside ourselves. We watch the people go by. We never just sit with ourselves. Don't be afraid to know yourself. You're a pretty cool person. Thank you so much for listening to Mystic Stew, and I hope to talk at you again.